Hello and welcome to the Private Practice Podcast. I'm Dr. Brooklyn Storme, and with nearly 30 years experience in the industry, I'm really excited to share practical insights, valuable wisdom, and all the tools that you need to build a thriving private practice. So whether you're a counsellor, psychologist, social worker, or play therapist, this podcast is all about keeping it real with stories, strategies, and all the support you need to help you flourish in business. We're going to be embracing a mind, business, spirit approach, diving into honest conversations that will uplift your practice and soul. And if you haven't already, come and join us in the Counsellors Connect Australia Facebook group. It's totally free and you'll find a warm, supportive community of like-minded professionals. So go grab your favorite drink, your journal, a pen, get cozy, and let's dive into the mind, business, spirit approach to private practice that you've been looking for. So during the week, I was speaking to a couple of psychologists and social workers, and they were bemoaning the fact that they were struggling to get referrals from local doctors for clients to come and see them. So I thought it might be helpful because they were asking me, what else can I do? Like the doctors know who I am. I've already done the GP meet and greets. In a couple of cases, the psychologist was in a rural area or regional area, and the work just wasn't coming through. Even there was a guy that was working in WA, and he was saying he was the only psychologist in his rural area, and he wasn't getting referrals from the doctors there. So he was thinking about, maybe I broaden my scope here and I do a little bit of telehealth, but he wasn't really sure how to go about that. It got me thinking about the journey that I went on a little while ago. Well, it's not really a little while ago. It's coming up to 5 years now, when I was releasing my registration. I made that decision that I was going to cancel my registration as a psychologist, and I was just going to pivot and go into counselling. Now, at the time, I didn't really have any idea how I was going to get clients. And the reason that I didn't know was, well, a few reasons actually. The first reason was that all I'd ever known really was Medicare rebates. In fact, I was seeing, as you know, like I had appointment availability at these medical clinics. There were 40 appointments being booked. Now, they weren't all turning up, of course. There were always a lot of no-shows at big bulk bill medical clinics. So don't panic and think I was seeing 40 clients a week. I wasn't. But that was the capacity and that was the availability, and they were very long hours. But because of my experience in doing that for so many years, it was all that I'd known. So I didn't really know any different, okay? There are other funding models that I had worked with, but the bulk of my work was definitely Medicare clients, definitely getting them from doctors. Now, for me, it was a little bit different because here's what happened. When I decided to move away from those bulk billing clinics, I went and rented a little serviced apartment in the Quest building in Frankston. I thought it was so luxurious, and I thought it was just amazing at the time. But what had happened was when I went in there for my first day of work, I actually had no clients in the diary. And then when I started to contact doctors who had been referring to me from those big bulk billing medical clinics, people hung up on me. Other people said that I was greedy because I was now charging money. So my fee that I was charging was $15, 15. So I was charging $15. I got, it was it was a mess. I made a mess of it because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just guessing. And the other thing that I was doing was I was in some Facebook groups at the time for private practice, and I was following along asking other people for advice, and I was implementing their advice. And I didn't stop to think, well, hang on, is this what they're doing? Is this advice reliable? Like, is this coming from a good source? And I implemented really bad advice that I ran with from these online Facebook groups. So it was a real disaster. But anyway, eventually I did figure out how to start charging a private fee to clients and processing Medicare rebates. And so I did all of that, did that for a couple of years. And then there were some changes politically, yada, yada, yada. And then I decided I'm out. I'm done with psychology because it's so far removed now from what I thought I was going to be doing in terms of helping people and working with people and stuff like that. So I made the decision to leave, pivot, go over to counselling, where I knew I was going to have more freedom to work in the way that I wanted to, choose the right therapy for the right client based on that client's presentation and based on experience and expertise, having had a bachelor, a postgraduate diploma, a master's, a PhD, and a whole bunch of other certificates, diplomas and qualifications that I'd accumulated as part of my PD in, 20 odd years of psychology. So I wanted that freedom and that flexibility. So, made the pivot and then thought, here we go again. How am I going to get clients without Medicare? And I started looking around to see what other people were doing. And to be honest with you, it did not take me long at all. It was a learning curve because when I'd been a psychologist, I didn't need to do any marketing, to be honest with you. Like I only had a website when I stopped bulk billing. So that was pretty late into my career, but that was pretty much the only marketing that I had done. Just having a website. I think at some point I printed off business cards. I don't know that I ever used those business cards. I did do a couple of GP meet and greets, but that was before. So then when I started doing counselling, I was thinking, okay. So again, reached out to doctors. Doctors were very clear that they didn't want to refer to me wearing the counselling hat. They had some opinions about counsellors and whether or not counsellors knew what they were doing and whether or not they were qualified. And so there were some big opinions. So I knew pretty quickly that I wasn't going to get work as a counsellor. So how am I going to fill my diary with clients who do not qualify for a rebate or, et cetera, et cetera. So what I needed to do was a couple of things. First off, I needed to have a mindset shift. So I had to look at, the mindset shifts that were necessary in order for me to believe that attracting full fee paying clients without Medicare was really possible. And the way that I did that was by looking around at other successful counsellors at the time. And that gave me confidence that, well, if they can do it, I can do it too. So I didn't feel envious. I didn't feel jealous. I didn't feel anything like that. I felt hopeful. I looked at their success and I thought, this is a sign that it's absolutely possible. So I had to shift my mind and I had to really think about, why do I believe? Like, what do I believe? And at the time I was believing this is going to be hard because I don't offer Medicare. So I then had to look at, how do I challenge the belief that client wouldn't pay full fees without rebates? And as I said, the way that I did that was by listening in other counselling groups and seeing how people were creating successful practices, seeing that people were creating successful practices, all those kinds of things. I had to do a lot of mindset work. I really believed it was going to be hard. I thought it's going to be impossible. I thought nobody's going to pay full fee. I mean, when I was a psychologist and I was charging $15, at that time, that meant that a client was paying $100 to see me and they were getting about $85 back. So it was $15 out of pocket. And I had so much pushback with that. So it was a big thing for me to think, okay, how is this thought stopping me from being able to get the clients that I want to be able to work with? How is this thought impacting on my ability to grow a successful private practice where I get to fill my diary with clients who actually want to be there, right? The other thing that I needed to do was I had to actually sit down and start thinking about niching. Right now, you've heard in previous podcast episodes I've recorded for you before and previous trainings, this was the thing that turned it around for me. starting a private practice and growing a private practice with full fee paying clients, I realized pretty quickly that my lack of a niche, me being very general and saying I do all the things for all the people, like I help with depression and confidence and anxiety and self-esteem and relationships and this and that and this and that, and I use CBT and I use ACT and I use person-centered and I use solution-focused and I use, all these things, was getting me diddly squat. It was getting me nowhere. So I realized pretty early on I needed to niche. It was something I'd resisted for a long time because I felt like I'd be cutting off my nose to spite my face. I felt like I was desperate for clients, desperate for money. I was in no position to be knocking back work, all those kinds of things. I hit rock bottom with my business, and then I realized that I needed to go all in. And you can hear about that in the podcast that I recorded 2 podcast episodes ago. So that was pretty much what happened. And I niched. So I niched. With that niching, I got really clear on who I wanted to work with. And the other thing at the time and I know many of you will remember this, but I was really, really, really into, and still am, but I was really into law of attraction, and I was really into manifesting and all of that. And so this was just personal development stuff that I was doing on the side. It was unrelated to my work. It was just something I was very interested in at the time. And when you're interested in those things, a lot of the tools that you use are personal development tools like journaling. So I was doing a lot of journaling, 2 journaling prompts. And those prompts were very helpful in helping me uncover beliefs that I had that I didn't realize were stopping me from actually being able to call in and attract full fee paying clients to my private practice. So I'd started to do a lot of deep inner work on the side, and I was starting to see now the benefits of that in my business, because it allowed me to get really clear on how identifying my ideal client would actually help me to attract them to my private practice. And that was really the basis for my niching. So for that, I started to reflect on who did I really enjoy working with in the past, and I identified a client that I really loved working with. And then I just made that person my ideal client for the niche at that time. And then the other thing that I want to share with you is some strategies that, you as a psychologist or social worker can use to define and connect with your ideal client. So one of the things that might be really helpful for you is a prompt. And that prompt is, in an ideal world, if money wasn't an issue, if I had total freedom and I was attracting the right clients, who would I be working with? Another prompt might be, if I came away from a work day having seen 4 or 5 clients and I was feeling energized and buoyant and vibrant and I had a bounce in my step, who would I have been working with? What were their personalities like? What was their vibe like? How committed were they to therapy? I want you to have a think about all the things too, this is just a different approach, all the things that really you struggle with or that bother you or challenge you about working with Medicare clients. So really think about, and this is going to be different for each of you, I know, but for me, I'll just share some of my things that bothered me about working with Medicare clients. It was lack of commitment because I was bulk billing at the time, or even just charging that $15 gap. It was lack of commitment. It was lack of buy-in. That meant that they weren't fully involved in therapy, and that manifested in them not doing homework. They were getting slow results. They were not prepared for sessions. They would come back to a session and I would ask them, what's changed, what's improved, where are they at now? And they would say nothing's changed. I would ask them, how did you go with this exercise that I gave you? They'd say they didn't do it. I would say, oh, did you fill out that CBT worksheet that I gave you, they'd say, no, I lost it. Just things like that. I say, what do you want to talk about today? They'd say, I don't know. They would disappear. So they would come maybe for a few sessions and then just disappear. The other thing that used to really bother me was they'd come in for sessions, I'd work with them, and then all of a sudden Medicare wouldn't process the rebate. Then I have to spend time, on the phone, trying to get in touch with Medicare, seeing why the rebate wouldn't be processed, and then be told by Medicare, oh, they've already had their 10 sessions for the year, and the 3 that you've seen them for aren't rebatable. So then I'm out of pocket because now they don't want to pay for the time that they've had with me. I used to get really frustrated that clients would not come back for that year after the 10 sessions. They'd say, oh, no, I'm not going to come back. I want my free ones. I'll just come back in January so I can have my free ones again. Things like that. And I really struggled with that. And I really struggled with the fact that because I was bulk billing and the way that I'd set my business up at the time, I didn't have cancellation fees. So I would have chunks of time in the day where clients didn't call me to say they weren't coming. They just didn't show up. And I was out of pocket because I couldn't invoice for that missed time. So there's some of the things that used to really bother me. Other things that bother me were just personal challenges that I used to struggle with. There were times when I was struggling to pay myself and pay my bills with the limited income that I was getting with Medicare clients. And I would see that, sometimes my clients would come in and they would have a new tattoo, or they'd have their nails and their hair done, or they would tell me they didn't come to the last 2 sessions because they were on a trip to Bali. And I used to find myself feeling resentment over that because I think, well, I can't go to Bali. I can't get my hair and nails done, but here we are, and let's do therapy. So I struggled with all of that. So think about what you don't like or what you find challenging. The other thing that I used to find challenging too was with Medicare, especially things about the auditing, all the processes and procedures, all the admin that was unpaid, the extra things that were expected of you that you didn't bill for at the time, like phoning the school. Can you phone the school so that, and speak to Johnny's teacher? Or my lawyer wants a report. Can you write a report and I'm not going to pay for it? And do you know what I mean? All that. So all those things I personally struggled with. Now you might not. I'm just like brain dumping here. But write down all the things that really you don't love about working with Medicare clients, because we're just talking about Medicare today. But you could do this for any type of client. But think about all the things you don't like, brainstorm them, write them down, and then on a separate piece of paper, go and write down the opposite. And there's your ideal client, right? That's going to give you clarity, and you need that to help you with your marketing and with your messaging. Right? And you need good marketing and good messaging so that you can build out your diary like so many of us do and have, so that you can attract full fee paying clients, right? So, someone was asking me, well, what changes did I make in my marketing to attract clients that were willing to pay and not get a rebate? So really, the changes that I made were, I got really specific. So when I was doing Medicare work, I wasn't niched, right? I was just I was going to these bulk billing medical clinics. I would turn up for work in the morning. There'd be an in-tray behind reception. It'd be stuffed to capacity with mental health care plans and referral letters. The diary would be filled for me by the practice manager and the girls at reception. I never knew who I was seeing from one day to the next. I would just get in there and there'd be names in the diary, and boom, we'd start seeing clients from 8 a.m. So I was seeing anything that walked through the door, and a lot of the time I had no idea who was walking through the door because I didn't have very good referrals. That's another bugbear that I have about Medicare. So many times I got referrals from doctors that just said, thank you for seeing, Joe Blow for support and management. That was it. There was no background information. So I never knew who was coming through, what they were wanting help with, what the treatment goals were, why they'd been referred, nothing like that, right? So I was seeing a mix. So one of the things I really needed to do was get clear about who I was helping. why that was important, how I could help that person. So for you, think about someone that you really, really enjoyed working with, right? If you're a psychologist or a social worker and you're entertaining the idea of, all right, how do I, ditch Medicare and start working with private full fee paying clients? Think about someone that you really, really enjoyed working with. So someone that I really, really enjoyed working with, she was in her mid-20s. She had a part-time job and she was going to uni. She was in a relationship. She was looking at moving out of home. She really loved spiritual stuff. She really loved tools and techniques like visualizations. She really loved guided imagery. She really loved journaling and doing that kind of work. She really loved practicing the tools that I was giving her. So I would record meditations for her and she'd go away and she'd use them. And then she'd come back and she'd tell me about them. She took notes in between our sessions so that when she came for sessions, I'd say to her, how did you go with what we were working on last session? Fantastic, amazing. Here's what I'm thinking we do this session, but I'd love to know, what are you wanting to work on? And she would say, well, I've got some notes. Here are some things that popped up for me during the week that I'd really like to focus on. And so, do you know what I mean? She was like that. She paid full fee. She paid on time. It was pay at the time of booking. She'll always pay on time. And she referred clients to me because she was getting results. So in my mind, that became my ideal client. So I started thinking, okay, if I want to attract more clients like that, what do I need to say on my website? And I focused on my website because I did a lot of research and about, how therapists should be marketing, and I did marketing courses and all that sort of stuff. And the thing that I learned was that most private practices do not get clients from social media. Most practices get most clients, 70% or more, from a website. So I knew I had to really make sure that I had a very good quality website. Good quality meaning I was speaking to this client who loved the visualizations. I would look forward to seeing this client when I saw her name in the diary, and I would feel so excited to see her. Like I'd be like, in 15 minutes, and I'll quickly run around and prepare, and I'll be there on the Zoom, so excited to see her. The other thing that I really loved about her was she was great at sticking to time, as was I, in that when it was coming to the end of the session, she would say to me, I'm mindful of the time, Brooklyn. I know we've only got 10 minutes left. Is it okay if we do this? So she was always very self-aware. It was wonderful. And then after I'd finished the session with her, I felt excited. I felt like change was happening. I felt like I was making a difference. I was helping somebody to create change in their own lives. And I remember the first time I actually got paid from a full fee paying client that didn't get any rebate whatsoever. She didn't ask about a Medicare rebate, nothing. She just paid the full fee, right? And then she booked more sessions, always paying at the full fee, and it was never a problem. She never questioned me about it. She never asked me about it. She never negotiated. She never asked for a discount. She never said, I can't pay you. Can I pay you next week? There was none of that. She just always paid me. And I remember the first time that a client paid me the full amount, they paid at the time that they booked. Their appointment was for a couple of days later. And I remembered the change I felt within me when I went to see her. I just felt like I wanted to show up differently. It's weird to say, but I felt like a new therapist in a way. Like I felt like I'd had a makeover in terms of how I was now approaching therapy with clients. Like I went and revamped how I wanted to run a session. I went and thought, wow, this person's actually paying me. And at the time, I think it was, I don't know, $180 or something. But I thought, this person's actually paying me $180 out of their own pocket. I better make this worth it. I better show up. I better, do this well, do it right, And I was just so, so, so excited. And after that session, and she booked the next one, I just felt like this is exactly what I was born to do. And over the next week or two, or three, more private clients started trickling into my diary. And it didn't take more than a few weeks for my diary to get full up with clients. And then I was so, so, so excited. And then it wasn't long after that, like I let kind of the dust settle and I let myself get used to the new way of running a private practice. I updated processes, because this was the other thing. With Medicare, I had no business processes. I had no business systems. I was just turning up, seeing clients, going home. I didn't understand that I needed processes. I didn't know what processes I needed, what they were, how to use them. None of that. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any systems in place. So when I started seeing full fee paying clients, you betcha, I realized quick smart, there were things that were missing from my business that I had no idea about. And I had to learn them very, very quickly. So once I put all those in place, I went on that big learning curve, put all those in place, and then I let the dust settle into my new way of working. I realized that I wanted to do more, and I wanted to work with more of these types of clients. And so after about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months, I bumped my fee. My fee went to $200, then it went to $220, then it went to $230, then it went to $300, then it went to $330. It's currently at $400. So, and I still have clients. So there were some big things that needed to change. And if I'm entirely honest with you, I want to help you see that you don't have to see Medicare clients to be a psychologist, to be a social worker, and have a private practice seeing clients that you love that also pays you, that doesn't use up all of your time, that gives you back your work-life balance. And here's what I know now that I didn't know then. And this is what I teach my clients in the Private Practice 101 certification course, right? So if you're in that course, you've got a deep dive on this. You know all of this already. But for those of you who don't, here's what it is. The trick is to shift your identity. That is the biggest thing. You have to shift your identity. At the moment, your identity is someone who mostly works with Medicare clients, right? You see yourself as a practitioner that works mostly with Medicare clients, that's built her practice or their practice or his practice, mostly working with Medicare clients. And that's your identity. Your identity is, I see Medicare clients, I do treatment reviews, I do treatment plans, I work to prescribed therapeutic modalities, I see clients for a fixed number of sessions, I do this, I do that, right? That's your identity. And so you need to start thinking now about, okay, how do I shift my identity if I want to start working with clients that are full fee paying, that are not interested in Medicare? If I got to drop Medicare today, if I got to release Medicare today, like Brooklyn did, what identity shift do I need to make, and how do I make that, right? That right there is the trick. That is the starting point. Before you start thinking about your vision for your private practice, and before you start making your processes and your systems and your procedures and all of that, the very first thing to do is shift your identity. Because if you don't see yourself as somebody who runs a private practice that works with beautiful clients that light you up, that are energy givers, not energy drainers, that you don't have to see as many, you don't have to see the high volume, that love to pay you, that you love to be paid by, that get results, that are invested, that do the work, that get beautiful transformations, that rave about you to their friends and family and loved ones, who generate word of mouth referrals for you, all that sort of stuff. That's what you need to focus on, shifting your identity. And the easiest way to do that is start daydreaming. I'm serious. Start allowing yourself, because things will pop up for you. Like, you're probably thinking, oh, that can't be possible. That will never happen for me. I'm trapped in Medicare. You are not trapped in Medicare. It's just because your mind hasn't yet started to explore what it could be like without Medicare. Things that will really work are things that are going to connect with your subconscious mind, because that's where all your beliefs are stored, right? We can only do so much with the conscious mind. We've only got, like, the conscious mind is only responsible for like 10%. The other 90% is the subconscious, and it's the subconscious that's driving our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and actions, especially when it comes to running a business. So all the CBT in the world is only going to work really with what's going on at a conscious level, right? Yes, CBT is effective, and yes, go and do that. But I want you to have big shifts and big changes. And I believe personally, in my experience, the best way to do that is through working with your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is like a 7-year-old child. Think about, if you're a parent, think about if you had a child that was aged 0 to 7, how did you need to teach them things? What was the best way for you to teach them things? It was going to be through story, through rhymes, through music, through song, through play, through picture, through colouring, through narrative, through exploration, through dreaming, through fantasy, all those kinds of things. Now, the quickest way to achieve an identity shift is going to be by doing something that helps you at that subconscious level. And for me, personally, that was doing visualizations, doing guided imagery and things like that, really allowing myself to connect with, for me, what I did was I connected with my future self. Let's imagine that, so in my meditation, in my visualization, I would like do a deepening process. Start with an induction, start with a deepening process. And then I would imagine, okay, let's imagine like, this is where you are right now. Let's jump on your timeline. Let's float you ahead, float you out to, 12 months in the future and drop you down into that reality. And your reality in that space there is that you don't see Medicare clients. You don't see Medicare clients. You're in your private practice and you're working with clients that pay you out of pocket without wanting, seeking, needing, asking for rebates. Have a look around, see what you're doing. What does your diary look like? What kind of clients are coming through? See yourself delivering a session. Who are you working with? What's their personality like? What's their vibe like? What's going on? How did they find you? How much are they paying you? Are they booking another session? Are they going off telling people about you? What are you wearing? What's the vibe of your space like? Are you working from home and doing it from home? Are you working on the phone? Are you in a physical brick and mortar space? Like, think about all those types of things. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? What do you notice? All those types of things. And then deepen that and go and sit next to yourself or sit with yourself in the therapy room and ask yourself how you made this your reality. How did you make this happen? What did you need to let go of? Was it a belief? Was it an idea you had? Was it a framework that you were using? What did you need to release or let go of in order to make this reality possible? And what did you need to welcome in? What did you need to be open to? Did you need to go and learn a skill? Did you need to go and shift a mindset? Did you need to go and get support? Did you need to, what was it that you needed to, the letting go of something is always to create space for something else to come in, right? The universe abhors a vacuum. So always when we're releasing something, it's to create space for something better to come in. So what did you need to then allow? Was it a new way of thinking? Was it a new way of being? Was it trusting? Was it surrendering? Was it what was it? ask. And then ask yourself in that visualization or in that meditation, ask yourself for an action step. What's the first thing that I need to do in order to close the gap between where I am 12 months from now and where I currently am? What's the first thing I need to do? Get that guidance from yourself in that meditation, right? Say thank you. Express gratitude to yourself. Maybe you want to give that version of you a hug. Maybe you want to give her a bunch of flowers. Maybe you just want to say thank you so much. Totally up to you, but do give gratitude, give thanks. It makes for a nicer experience for you. And then, float back up and then float back across to the here and now. Drop yourself down into the here and now part of your timeline in January 2025 and get your, come out of the meditation, of course, so the deepening, we're coming out, you're going to be wiggling your fingers and toes, doing all of that. Get a piece of paper and a pen and write down what that action step was and then do it, because change is going to come from implementation, right? Change is going to come from implementation. So that is the process that I use and that I recommend. It's something that I teach in my courses. I teach it to my momentum clients. I'm sharing a bit of it with you here now, enough so that you can get started with it as well. The other thing that people ask me, people being psychologists and social workers, they say to me, how did you or did you change or adjust your services or pricing structure when you transitioned away from Medicare? The answer is yes, I did. So when I did change my pricing structure. And the reason for that was because after I started to get my first few clients, I valued myself differently because I felt like I was being valued, if that makes sense. And that was a new experience for me. I didn't realize when I was working with bulk billing medical clients that I didn't feel like my help was being valued. So this was a big thing for me. And as my confidence grew, so did my fee. As the results and the outcomes for clients started to become more evident, my fee increased, right? So I went from charging $15 at one point, so $100 to a client, they were getting 85 back. What was the most I was charging? I think the most I was charging before I stopped my registration as a psychologist was $150, which meant clients were out of pocket about $70. I did have a mild panic attack, as probably you will, thinking, oh gosh, how am I going to get $150 a session without a rebate? But the thing is, you're not marketing to clients who can't afford the service anymore. You're not marketing to clients who want Medicare, and you're not marketing to clients who are in the medical model coming from doctors anymore. That's the first thing. You're now marketing to the public, right? A niche within the public. And they're not interested in a medical model. And my experience when I first started was people found me, and as a counselor, they would say to me, I've already seen psychologists, it didn't help. I've already done the Medicare thing and done the CBT thing, it didn't help. I didn't feel a connection with my psychologist. I didn't feel heard. There was no space for me just to talk and get things off my chest and share my story, because they were focused on me filling out worksheets and doing a DAS and doing pre and post and all of this sort of stuff. I've come to counselling because I need space where I can just unpack things in my own time, in my own way, without the pressure of there's only 10 sessions and you've got to do it my way or the highway and things like that. I need space. So that was the first thing that I realized. I realized from my first few clients that there was a market for me and other counselors and other therapists with clients who did not want Medicare. The other thing that I heard time and time again when I was first starting out without Medicare from my counseling clients was they didn't want to be on Medicare because they didn't want things on their permanent record. At the time, there was a lot of upset in the community because the government had announced that Medicare information is now shared and available with third parties. And there were clients that I that had applied for a mortgage or they'd applied for a loan, and the bank had been able to get access to their health records on MyGov and stuff like that, or whatever it was called at the time, My Health Record or whatever it was called. It's called something else now. And because the person had a mental health care plan, they either weren't getting approved for mortgages and loans, or they were being told they were high risk, and so they were going to have to pay higher interest. So there was a lot of resistance at that time for clients to go and get a mental health care plan. There was a lot of mistrust, all those kinds of things. So, and thirdly, a lot of the clients that I was working with were saying, I don't want a diagnosis. I don't want a label. I just want space where I can figure out what on earth is going on with me and I can get some support around it. So it was a big transition, and it made me realize there are so many people that are not wanting Medicare. And that I wasn't seeing that because my experience was working with people who were referred under Medicare. Does that make sense? So now here I am, not being able to do a Medicare rebate, but getting clients coming asking if they can work with me because I don't. So it was the very fact that I was not offering Medicare rebates became the attraction point. And when I realized that, I stepped that up in my marketing, and I started to say things on my website like, here are the advantages of not having Medicare rebates. Here's why I don't offer Medicare rebates. Here's how things are better for you without a Medicare rebate. And I started really leaning into that. I don't do that as much now. In fact, I don't even advertise my counseling services now. I just somehow clients find me any given week. I've got 3 or 4 counselling clients that I see. That's all I want to see. It's all I need to see. And I don't see them on Zoom or Google Meets or anything like that either. And I don't see them in person. It's a beautiful way of working that I've taken time over the last 3 or 4 years to develop for myself. And I would never look back. Another question that somebody asked me was, what role does building rapport and demonstrating ongoing value play in client retention? Here's the thing. Rapport is responsible for everything, right? This is what I teach in the More Clients in Private Practice marketing program. So if you're in that program, you already know this. There are 3 pillars that I've created for private practice owners that will fill your diary quickly and easily if you follow them, right? And that first pillar is building trust and rapport and connection, right? Without that, you're not going to have a client to work with. If you can't do those 3 things in that first session, that client's gone, and then I've got the hiccups. And then there's going to be pressure on you to find another client. So rapport building is very, very, very important. I trust that because you're a psychologist or a social worker, you're already well versed in how to do that. So I'm not going to give you a masterclass in how to build rapport. I'm sure you already know how to do that. I think that when it comes to transitioning from Medicare clients to full fee paying clients, I think in terms of rapport, I think the biggest change for me was I got to spend more time being still. When I was doing Medicare work, I felt like there was pressure on me to be asking questions. I would often get clients who were unprepared for sessions and didn't want to talk, didn't want to be there perhaps. They were only there because their doctor had suggested it to them or required them to come in. That was the perception. And so they weren't really that participative, right? They weren't really contributing to their therapy. And so I often will find myself in a Medicare bulk bill session or Medicare rebatable session doing a lot of the work. And by that I mean asking a lot of the questions. How are you today? What's changed for you? What would you like to talk about today? What did that mean for you? How did you feel when that happened? Blah, blah, blah. It was like pulling teeth. It was effort, effort, effort. And I really felt like I had to work hard to build rapport. I really had to work hard to get the rapport happening and make sure that, they're booking their subsequent sessions under Medicare. When I started seeing clients privately, my experience was I didn't feel pressured to build the rapport. The rapport was kind of already there. I already liked this person because they'd already paid me. I knew that they'd found me by my website or by word of mouth. So I knew that they were already interested in what I was doing, and they already knew about my approach. And when they were with me, I found myself wanting to be there. I found myself interested more in what they were talking about. I was more curious. I was listening more. They were talking more. They wanted to tell me all different parts of what was going on for them, their experience. It was just easier. There was so much less effort, and there was no pressure on me to think ahead and think, oh, what CBT strategy do I need to be using? Do they need a worksheet on thinking distortions? Do I need to give them a thought diary? Do I need to give them a B, C, D, E chart? Like, I wasn't, my head wasn't off in all those places. I was present and I was just there. And I think that helped me create deeper rapport than when I was working with Medicare clients. I don't think, if I'm honest with myself and I look back, there were, of course, clients that I had deep rapport with. And of course, all my clients, the rapport was there. But when I'm working with full fee paying clients, it's just so different because you show up differently. I can't really describe it. You just, it's like not having coffee with a friend. It's not like that, but it's like you release everything else. You stop thinking about where's this going, what's the diagnosis, what's the treatment, or you stop thinking about all of that, and you're just there with the client in this container, in this bubble, in this space that you've created for yourselves. And it is very, very, very grounding, and it is very humbling. It is very precious. It's deep. You get to go so much deeper than you can with a structured sort of Medicare session. And for that reason, the rapport is there. The rapport is there. And they book the next session and you come back, and it's just so, it's almost effortless. And you're so curious and you want to know what's going on and what happened next and where are they now? And, and you get to ask them different questions, and they're questions that you generally probably wouldn't ask in a rebatable session. But you get that freedom now of being able to do that, and you get to open things up for them in new ways. And sessions become more about where they're at now and what's possible and what they're wanting, and less about symptom treatment, symptom management, do this breathing exercise and you'll be right. It becomes a lot more expansive and a lot more deeper. And that is where the value is. The value is not in the price that you charge. The value is in how somebody experiences your presence in a session. That is the value to them. Your ability, like their experience of you, is the value. So if they're coming along and they're feeling like you're not seeing them as somebody who's broken, you're not seeing them as someone with a label, you're not seeing them as someone with symptoms that need treatment, you're not telling them do these things and then you can be normal, you're not doing all of that. If their experience of you is that you accept them warts and all, if their experience of you is that there's no pressure to get better, if their experience of you is maybe this isn't about getting better. Maybe this is about understanding myself. Maybe this is about opening up. Maybe this is about, do you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff. That's the value. If their experience of you is that you're not going to judge them, you're not going to assess them, you're not going to diagnose, you're not going to label, you're just going to accept them for who they are. And it's through questioning and through gentle prompting that they're going to, for themselves, that's the value. And that's what keeps them coming back. The value for the client is not a rebate. The value for the client is not a dollar amount. This is a different demographic of people. If you are wanting to transition, get clear right now, you are not going to be marketing to the people you currently see. You're going to be releasing them with love and gratitude because they got you to where you are. They've helped you build your practice so far. They've given you experience. They've given you insights, all that sort of stuff. So we release Medicare rebate clients with love, with gratitude. Okay. And, they can go on and fill somebody else's diary. And you're pivoting now. And you're going to be working with different clients who want this, who are seeking this, who don't want to feel rushed in a session, who want somebody to just be present, who want someone to not judge them, who want someone to be on their side, who want someone to be able to give them those gentle prompts so they can have their ahas and their breakthrough moments. Okay. Another question that I was asked during the week, so I've made all of these in the notes section on my phone, so I'm just reading my phone as we're going along, so just excuse me while I bring this up. The other question that I was asked was, how do psychologists, or how can psychologists and social workers ethically market their services so that they can attract full fee paying clients without seeming salesy or pushy? Now, this is a really common question. And again, this is something that we cover over in the More Clients for Your Private Practice marketing program. So I'm not going to go into it in too much detail here. If you're in that program, you already have access to all this training. There's a whole module on it. But for those of you who are listening now, I guess the thing that I can share with you is this is not about pushing or forcing or coercing. If you're doing that, that's saying to me there's something going on with you and your identity and your mindset. And those are the two things that need to be worked on first, because once you understand what the value is of the service that you're providing, and once you start seeing yourself as the person that's providing that value, everything starts to shift and change. And your marketing is all about speaking to that one client, that one type of client that you want to be working with. You're no longer talking to every man and his dog. You are talking to this one person, and it's by talking to them that you're relating to them. So there's no selling, there's no pushing, there's no discounting, there's none of that, because your marketing is authentic. So because it's authentic, your messaging is connecting to your ideal client who's reading your website and going, oh my gosh, it's like she's reading my mind. Oh my gosh, it's like she's been exactly where I am. Oh my gosh, she's helped all these other people with similar stuff. I know, I have to work with this person. So there isn't any pushing. There isn't any coercing. If you're doing those things, it's because you are maybe experiencing imposter syndrome, you're doubting yourself, you're wondering whether or not you can do it, you're still stuck in Medicare mindset. So it's really about, my best advice for you, if you're feeling like you're pushing and you're selling and things like that, is take a step back, go back and do that identity work. That needs to happen before you start trying to call in full fee paying clients, right? The beautiful thing about this as well is you don't have to do what I did and say, oh, I'm going to release my registration. No, still be a psychologist, still be a social worker, still retain those titles, still retain those registrations. Absolutely. I'm not saying cancel your registration. No, it's not about that. This is about how can you start to increase the number of people that want to work with you without a rebate, without seeking a rebate. So I believe that once you start, you're going to have clients in your diary now that are seeking Medicare rebates. And then you're going to be doing this work that we're talking about today, and you're going to get your first client booking, no rebate, right? And they're going to pay the full fee, no rebate, no arguments. They want to be there. They're happy about it. You're nervous and anxious about it, but you deliver the session. You feel great. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is confirmation from the universe. This is what I want to do. They book a session for the next week. Next thing you know, you've got a second client now that's also coming along next week at the full fee. The diary starts filling up with more of these appointments of the full fee paying clients. You start to notice a difference now in how you feel energetically between working with the bulk bill clients or the Medicare rebate clients versus the full fee paying clients. You notice a difference because there is a difference. I'm not going to lie to you. There is a difference. And you'll start to notice that, and you'll start to think to yourself, where do I really want this practice to be going? What do I want to see more of? What do I want to do less of? And you'll start to naturally gravitate towards full fee paying clients, and you will notice over time, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, you will notice the Medicare clients start to naturally just start dropping off. You don't have to make any big decision. You don't have to make a big announcement to the world that you're not going to do it anymore. You will just notice that they stop booking in, and that full fee paying clients are booking in. And you will also notice that you don't have to see as many full fee paying clients as you had to when you were mostly or solely relying on Medicare clients. And what happens then is you're like, wow, I was pressuring myself to see 20 clients a week. Now I only need to see 15. Now I only need to see 10. Wow, I've got this extra 10 hours. What can I do? And you can do, you can get your life back. That's what happened for me. I got my life back when I went to full fee paying. That was when I started doing my hiking groups. That was when I trekked Everest, as you know. You know the story. That was when I was doing the ballroom dancing and going off to all the ballroom dancing competitions. That was when I was doing Kung Fu, and I went to China and, did some work with the monks in China on Kung Fu. Well, it was a form of Kung Fu called Wushu, but that's what I was doing. I had a life. I was dating. I had friends that I would go and see. I had a life that I didn't have when my business was solely and wholly focused on Medicare clients, right? And this is just my personal experience, right? Yours is going to be different to mine, but I'm just sharing, like, I got my life back. And even now, I have Practice Momentum, right, which is a business coaching program that I've got for people who are starting their private practice or people who are in an established private practice, but they're wanting access to support, guidance, because maybe it's not where they want to be just yet, or maybe they're wanting sort of that day-to-day support. So I've got clients in that. Now, I have capacity for 100 clients in that program without seeing a single one of them for a Zoom session or an in-person appointment. And that only costs me 10 hours a week to deliver that program. And then I have 4 or 5 private counselling clients that I work with. One of them comes weekly, some of them come fortnightly, all of that. So I barely work is what I'm saying. But I've got a 6-figure practice. And since it all started with releasing Medicare, moving into full fee paying clients, and then finding my feet with that and trying different approaches. Meaning I had to release the mindset of I've got to have 40 people in my diary. That was the big thing. It was a huge adjustment to think, oh, you don't need 40 appointments. Oh, look at this. You've only got 15 booked in. But when I look at the figures, when I look at the money, those 15 are bringing in more than if all of those 40 attended. So it was a big adjustment going from seeing all these different coloured appointments in the diary to now seeing the diary look pretty sparse. From there, I started to realise that I loved certain types of clients, so my niche evolved. It started evolving, and with that evolving, my price went up because I started to specialize. With the price going up, it meant that I could reduce the number of sessions I was seeing. Then I got to a point where my business model changed again, and I realized that I wanted to be able to help people, but at different price points. So then I started memberships, and do you know what I mean? So I started trying all new things, and I would never have been able to do that with a Medicare reliant business model. From there, I started creating courses. I created, Australia's first private practice certificate program. I did, a marketing program that's solely and wholly for private practice owners so they can get clients. I started to create passive income streams for my business. I had space to do all of these things. I could get my own business coaching. I could go and do courses that I wanted to do. I could, courses that were going to help me get to where I wanted in my business. I created a business that now, instead of being led by the number of appointments that were in my diary, which was always the focus before, making sure I had a fully booked diary, now I was discovering and realizing, hey, this is interesting. My business is now being directed by alignment of what feels good for me. What do I really want to do? Who do I really want to work with? And so this was how the authenticity started to come through. And I started to notice as soon as I got a client who was not the right fit for me, boom, I was referring them off to a colleague because alignment then became so important for me. And then over the last 12 months, 2 years, energy became very, very important to me for a few reasons. I was having my own health conditions at the time. I know now that I have, a level 1 autism, and I know now that I have both attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and attention deficit inattentive disorder, giving me the combined subtype. So my label, if you like, is ADD-C. And so that explains to me why my energy was fluctuating so much and why I was struggling to, do online appointments, for example, and stuff like that. But having private fee-paying clients and having passive income and having multiple revenue streams meant I was able to invest less one-to-one time with clients, still provide for myself financially and give myself space to figure out a new way of working that would allow me to still pay myself, still put money into my superannuation, which is really important to me, still put money into my savings, which is really important to me, still provide, like my mother's financially dependent on me, she has been for the last 5 years, still provide everything she wants and needs and then some. Do you know what I mean? And this is how my practice has evolved. But I didn't go from having a bulk billing Medicare practice or a Medicare practice that wasn't charging much of a gap to, how do I just work, maybe 10 hours a week and make, bucket loads of money and have all this free time on my hands to Netflix and chill or, go to the gym or go for brunch. It wasn't like that. You can't go from 0 to 100. Your business is just going to naturally evolve. But the first step to attracting full fee paying clients for your private practice as a psychologist or as a social worker is going to be in your identity. And actually, this applies if you're a counselor as well. Counselors, look, I heard a thing, it was a quote from Tony Robbins that I heard years ago. And this is his quote, not mine, so please don't come at me for this. But he said, what was it? Men will always sell themselves up. Women will always sell themselves down. And I think that we see this a lot in counseling, in social work, in psychology. That's just what we're talking about today, but probably other helping professions as well that tend to be dominated by women, people who identify as females. I think it's true. I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests that as women, we undercharge, we undersell, we avoid putting ourselves first. We want to be affordable. We want to be accessible, all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not saying men don't do that. I'm sure they do, but they have a different approach to marketing their business than we do because they see things a little bit differently. And again, we know this from the research, but it's something that we need to get past as women. And I think when you can do that and you start to see that the value is not, who's going to pay me $150 or who's going to pay me $200? You're thinking like that because your experience is rooted in rebatable sessions. Those clients probably, for the most part, won't want to suddenly pay you $200 for something that they've been getting rebates for. It's going to be very difficult for you to convert people who've been getting money back to clients that don't get money back for essentially the same service. So they are not the people that you're going to be marketing to. You are going to be marketing to a new group of people that you haven't met yet, right? And so that's why it's going to feel a little bit strange and weird. And will those people want to pay you $200 for a session? Absolutely, they will, because of all the reasons that they don't want to see a psychologist or social worker on Medicare. They don't want to have their privacy compromised. They don't want to miss out on getting loans or mortgages or things like that. They don't want to be diagnosed. They don't want a label. They don't want treatment. They don't want pressure to get better. They don't want to waste their time filling out paperwork. They want someone who's going to sit there, listen, accept them, hold the space for them, let them unpack things for themselves, give them some gentle prompts so that they can have their own aha moments instead of giving them the aha moment. Do you know what I mean? There are people out there that do not want to work with psychologists or psychologists under Medicare because they don't want to see themselves as sick. They don't want to focus on symptoms and illness, and they don't want strategies. They don't want those things. They want something different. And they're the people that you're going to be speaking to in your marketing, that you're going to be booking for your private fee paying sessions, right? Another one of the questions that came through during the week was, how can psychologists and social workers manage our fear of losing clients when we're raising fees or we're eliminating rebates? Well, do you know what? I say leave your Medicare clients where they are. Start shifting away, pivot, shift your identity and start pivoting towards the client you do want to be working with. I would not bother eliminating Medicare altogether until you had enough full fee paying clients to meet your current income level and or exceed it. I don't think it's best practice for you to tell people who've been getting rebates, oh, now I'm not going to be offering rebates anymore, so you're going to have to still get the same service, but without that. I think that'll do more damage to your business. So I wouldn't bother. I would leave your current clients where they are, and I would make all new changes for all new clients, right? So all new clients coming in, are going to be full fee paying clients. If you still wanted to give yourself a safety net while you're getting the hang of calling in new clients, then what I would do is I would shuffle the diary and I would time block, and I would say, I have capacity for X amount of Medicare rebate clients per week. They can come on this morning and that afternoon. That's it. My other morning and my other afternoons are just for fee paying clients. So I would do something like that. And as you started to get full of Medicare clients, I would start a wait list. That's it. I would start a wait list, or I would say to those Medicare clients, look, I have a wait list for rebates. However, I do offer the service without rebates. Here's how it's a little bit different. Here's what you can expect. Da, 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 da. Is this something that you'd like to give a go? Is this something you'd be interested in trying? And giving them an opportunity to maybe get started as a full fee paying client. And sharing with them the advantages of not going under Medicare, right? So that would be something that you could do. So somebody else asked me what fears did I have when I was moving away from Medicare. I think I've already spoken about it, but it was really, how am I going to get clients? Who's going to pay me? I didn't realize at the time that this was not about trying to get existing Medicare clients to pay me a full session fee now without a rebate. What I had to do was pivot, let go of my experience and start being open to a new experience. And it was interesting. It was a learning curve. There was lots I didn't know that I needed to learn about marketing, about messaging, because the reality is you kind of got to work for it when you're looking for a fee paying client. When you get Medicare clients, you don't really have to market. You don't really have to do that much as a psychologist or social worker to get Medicare clients. It's different to get full fee paying clients, and you need to understand what the strategies are, what the processes are. So yeah, I had to go on a big learning curve, and no doubt you will too. But it was also, apart from being a little bit scary, it was fun because I love learning, and you probably love learning too. I had money coming in while I was learning. And then when it started to work and I started to get my first couple of clients and see the results, I was sold. And then I knew that there was going to be no turning back. And that's when everything really started to change. Then one of the other questions was, what systems did I need to use to support like private fee paying clients? I didn't change my systems. I was still using Haloxy, still do use Haloxy. It was just really, I needed to have some better processes in place around onboarding, around intake and stuff like that. So I changed those. They're very different to what I was doing for Medicare. In fact, with Medicare, I didn't even have an onboarding process. It was just kind of like, you know, I would be in the at the medical clinic, and I'd be in some random clinic room that had the sink in it and the bed, the stethoscope on the table, the phone. The new client would come in and I'd just start with a history. I will, of course, we'd go over consent, but I'll just then start with a history. So there wasn't really any onboarding. So I didn't know that you had to onboard a new client, for example, and I didn't know what was included in that. So I had to learn that kind of stuff. So that was probably the big thing. I had to create policies that were specific to fee-paying clients, and I'd never really created policies before. I'd just kind of been turning up doing Medicare work, but now I had to have policies. I didn't know what policies I needed. It was very much trial and error, but now I've got that down pat. If you're in Private Practice 101, you've got a checklist in there for all the policies that you need to have to attract full fee paying clients. There's also, I bundled them all together. You can get all those resources as base templates, and you could just, they're pretty ugly actually. It's just Google Docs with text on, and throughout each separate form or document, I've got it highlighted in yellow what you need to change. So they're pretty basic in terms of how they're presented, but you make them pretty by adding your logo, your font, your branding, your business details, all that kind of stuff. That's how the pretty comes. But all the essential information that you need to have for compliance is in those. And you can go and get them on my website, which is brooklynstorme.com, and they're just called the essential forms for private practice. So kind of, I've tried to, along my journey, I've been very mindful of how can I make up and coming private practice owners or established private practice owners who want to work with full fee paying clients. How can I make it easier for them? What could the shortcuts be? And I've gone through my own journey and thought, what did I spend the most time on and the most effort on? And then I've gone and created a product or a service that gives you the shortened version, so you don't have to spend so much time and you can get to where you want to be a lot quicker. And a lot of that, as I said, you can go and find on my website. It's on the everything page on my website. Yeah, I gave up trying to have all different tabs, and I've just done a tab that's called Everything I Do, or the everything page, and everything's just in there. Products, services, everything to help you get started seeing full fee paying clients for your private practice. So there's that. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So I guess what I want you to take away from today, if you're a psychologist or a social worker and you're working with Medicare and that's the bulk of your practice, and you're in a situation now where you're desperate for work, you're worried about your money, all that kind of thing, the referrals just aren't coming through and you don't know why, and you're feeling like, what do I do next? What's my next step? I would say the next step for you is to look at, how am I going to call in fee paying clients? Is it possible for me to, over time, see less Medicare and increase the number of full fee paying clients I get? How do I make this happen for me? What needs to be possible? All those kinds of things. And I've given you journal prompts and stuff like that throughout this episode. And yes, this can work if you're a counselor too, because you're also not seeing Medicare clients. This can absolutely work for you. There are so many people in the marketing course and the private practice course that fill their diary with full fee paying clients, no Medicare. And they're from all walks of life. There's play therapists, there's OTs, there's speechies, there's psychs, there's social workers, everything. Right? So if they can do it, you can do it. There's resources and help there if you want it. But the big takeaway is, if I could do it, and I've got all these other complications that I know now, like the autism and the ADD, if I still can manage to muddle my way through it and create a practice that I'm excited about, that feels really easy and light and fun, that I just love. Like, I love my practice so much. There's nothing else I would do in the whole entire world. Then I want you to know that it's possible for you too. And I've been very transparent with you because I want you to see what my experience was like and the lessons that I learned. And I'm giving them to you here today so that you can have your aha moment or your realization sooner, because that's what's going to lead to you creating a practice that you're really in love with, just like I am now. Okay. And are you going to be able to release Medicare clients and then do what I'm doing and have a 6-figure income only working, 10 hours or so a week? Maybe not. You're going to be on your journey, and your journey is going to be, it's going to start off with shifting your identity, calling in your first few fee paying clients, realizing that's where you really want to be, building that up, and then shifting your fees. And then maybe as you go along, you might evolve in terms of your niche and what you want to do. And with that evolution comes a higher fee. With that higher fee comes less work, gives you more space to start working on the business rather than in it, to explore, okay, now I'm at a point where I've got the space financially to be able to sit back and actually do a course, to actually learn how to do this, to actually look at what are other passive income streams I want to have? What are other revenue streams in general that I want to have? Do I want to write that course? Do I want to make that membership? Do I want to make those digital products? Because you've got the space. And then when money starts coming in from them, you dial back your work even more if that's something that you want to do. And then you can get to the point maybe like I did and say, is this how I want to work? And you can start to play around with different ways that you want to work with your clients. You could try new things because financially you've got the space there. And I really believe that when things are sorted out for you financially, then you have the mental capacity to be able to explore all the other business things, right? That's my experience. That's what happened for me. That's my personal perspective. And it's through all of that that you get to realize, hey, when I was doing Medicare work, maybe I wasn't having a business that was truly authentic. And maybe that's why I wasn't attracting clients I really wanted to work with. Maybe I was so focused on the numbers and the appointments and, making sure that clients were getting those rebates. Maybe that's what was actually preventing me from being able to access all this other stuff that's always been available to me, that's available to me right now. Does that make sense? So anyway, that's that. I know this was a much longer podcast episode, but I hope that it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, of course, let me know. You can visit my website and download some free stuff if you like. If you have questions about private practice or anything like that, or how you start to call in fee-paying clients, let me know. And I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. But I hope that this was a really helpful, insightful, genuine, practical episode that really was useful for you to listen to. And if it was, please let me know. It would help me so much if you would share this episode with a colleague or a friend, or if you would pop onto iTunes and give a little bit of a review, because I'll just help it get in front of more people who are just like you and who are just like me and might need to hear this kind of content. Thank you so much for being part of my world. Have a beautiful Saturday. Bye.
I really hope that you got so much enjoyment, value, and insights out of this episode today. And if you did, please feel free to go ahead and leave a review. When you leave a review, it means that more therapists can access this help and support and tools to support them in their private practice and in their journeys. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Have a gorgeous day.